Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. You can see he posted about politics 45 times. And this is largely because of what is going on in Europe, and more specifically today, what is going on in England. Here's what's happening. The UK is experiencing record numbers of migrant rapes, and the police barely help. Teenage girls have resorted to defending themselves from being assaulted, and what do the police do? They arrest the girls trying not to be raped. The UK has fallen to dystopian levels of evil, and this is one of the girls who was arrested for trying to defend herself when threatened. And Elon quotes this and says, "Start by condemning the grovelers and collaborators in positions of authority in Britain who aided the rape epidemic of their own people or turned a blind eye to their responsibilities, both civil and criminal prosecutions." And then he says that he would actually like to help fund legal actions against corrupt officials who aided and abetted the rape of Britain, per the official government inquiry. This is the inquiry he's referring to. This British politician, Rupert Lowe, says our rape gang inquiry has today released research detailing 85 local authorities in which the gang-based sexual exploitation of children is taking place or has historically done so. This is one of the most comprehensive exposes of the rape gang scandal to date. And Elon quotes that saying there were 85 cities in Britain where local authorities were complicit in the rape of children. And as I told you guys, the little girl in this video has now been arrested for possession of a weapon when she was trying to defend herself. So Hunter quotes it saying, "Creepy migrant approaches preteen British girls. Girls pull weapons to defend themselves. Cops arrest the little girl." The de facto policy of the British government is to maximize the rape of British girls and remove any barriers to this happening, including self-defense. So Elon quotes that and he says they are traitors to their own people. He says any government driving destruction of its own people is not legitimate. And the Goblin guy says white, British, and Scottish men have been posting in favor of her being arrested on X and on Reddit. Somebody asks, what are their arguments? Basically, the talking point is, I'm not saying I'm in favor of immigration, but these girls are old enough to know the laws against stabbing weapons. So Elon says, pathetic grovelers they are. But David Carla says, here are the two options European women have. Defend yourself and go to jail, or death. And Elon replies saying it's obviously unacceptable. And he reposted that any government that refuses to protect its daughters is illegitimate. The crown is in the gutter, just waiting for someone to come pick it up. And so Elon posted the English flag today, and it has 240,000 likes. Melissa Chen quotes it and says, it doesn't matter whether it's Labour in Britain or the Democrats in America. The left always cares more about migrants than citizens, violent criminals than law-abiding and working-class folks, and every other flag, pride, Palestinian, you name it. They care about it more than the flag of their own country. The American left has been baited into burning the stars and stripes, and the British left are walking into the trap of coding the English flag as a far-right symbol. It's astounding that they think this is a winning strategy, and Elon says, true. This guy says, each one of these stories radicalizes me even further to the right with a deep hatred for depraved, evil rulers who would arrest a young girl for defending herself, yet let the migrant creep roam free to prey on more little girls. And Elon says, yes. And the pink ladies of Canary Wharf have turned up to the scene of alleged rape on Hertzmere Road in the early hours of Saturday morning to stand in solidarity with the alleged victim, a woman in her 20s. No arrests have been made, but the investigation is open. Allison says mums protesting is genius. It can't be kettled. It can't be goaded into violence. It can't be stigmatized as far-right thugs. Mums against illegal immigrants is the state's worst nightmare. And Elon says, good. And the British Transport Police Authority warn that there is an epidemic of violence and sexual assaults against British women on trains. Violent crimes against women and girls are up 59% since 2021. Sexual offenses up 10% in a year. And in response to Elon's English flag, Adam Lois says, this is the most controversial thing you can say in Western civilization. White guilt is a mental illness. We shouldn't have to hate ourselves for existing. It's okay to be white. And Elon responds, 100. And Neo Berg asks if a single grooming gang child rapist during the past decades was ever arrested as quickly as this girl for pulling out these weapons to defend herself. And Elon says that's utterly contemptible behavior by the authorities. And this news outlet says Operation Raise the Colors has reached America. And Nigel Farage says, look at these scenes from yesterday as another 650 illegals arrived in Dover. Reform will announce our blueprint for deportations at 10:30 a.m. today. So Elon replied to this saying, post the flag of England. Angie says, start by reforming the Church of England. It's been compromised. And Elon says, absolutely. But I think he started by posting the English flag himself. And he says that it's time for change. We don't know her name, but she's a hero nonetheless. Brian from Scotland says, we are organizing male citizen patrol in that area. We need them in all our big cities. Tommy Robinson quotes that saying, the men of Scotland are stepping in to patrol Dundee, where the young girls were left to defend themselves from migrant men and the girls were arrested. Go on, lads. And a girl in Holland was unfortunately murdered while calling cops to report being followed on her bike ride home. The murderer had raped another woman days earlier. If she defended herself, she would have been arrested. If anyone intervened, they would have been arrested. If her parents complain about this, they will be arrested. European governments exist to suppress native resistance to theft, rape, and murder. They have no other function, and Elon reposted this. And in response to that national inquiry in Britain, Charlie says, we don't know the true scale of these atrocities. But with this new data, you can be sure that you are only 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from somebody directly affected. Brutal justice cannot come soon enough for the perpetrators and their collaborators. Elon says the Quisling collaborator should be charged with aiding rape and in some cases murder and spend a long time in prison. And Ben Habib is leader of the Advance UK movement. And he says successive governments have for decades practiced a policy of mass legal and illegal immigration, with all its attendant damage. It should be self-evident that this damage can only be reversed by a reversal of that policy. In other words, the solution lies in mass repatriations and the deportation of illegal migrants. This would not be an extreme policy. It would be nothing more than what has already been taking place, but in reverse. It can be done peacefully and legally, but it must be done if we wish to reverse the damage to the country. Politicians seeking to appear moderate and shying away from the challenge are embedding the damage. The truly moderate approach is to adapt policies which reverse the damage done by 30 years of open borders. And of course, once again, enforcing our borders, and Elon reposted this. And of course, Tetsuo unleashed Grok Imagine on the English flag, and he then posted Elon saying, be the light that the darkness fears. Elon replied to him saying, who will protect the children if not the strong? Frankly, I understand why some people hate billionaires if they throw parties on yachts. They make useless virtue signaling donations, but do nothing real to protect those in need. And Rupert Lowe says that Farage, who is another British politician, has just attacked me for backing mass deportations. Let me be clear about what happened. What he is referring to is my support for removing foreign nationals who were aware that their husband, brother, uncle, and son was raping vulnerable young white girls on an industrial scale. If they knew and did nothing, then yes, they should be removed from our country. I make absolutely no apologies for stating that. I do not want such evil walking our streets. Deport them all. If that results in entire communities being deported, then that is what must happen, obviously. The number is irrelevant. Everyone who knew and did nothing must go. If a Pakistani woman knew that her husband was raping a young white girl, facilitating it, then yes, she should go back to Pakistan with her husband. It's shocking that Farage doesn't agree. At a reform event in Essex, Farage even removed the line mass deportation from my speech. He later told the Telegraph he thought it was a very grave, dark, and dangerous use of language. What's changed? In that same speech, he instructed me to remove a reference to deporting these complicit foreign nationals. I refused, and I'm glad I did. He says millions can't go. I disagree. My position is clear, and it's one the British people agree with. Mass deportation of every single illegal migrant. Abolish the entire asylum system. Review all refugee claims given to illegal arrivals, with deportation the default. And actually, the biggest problem of them all, legal immigration. A large number of legal migrants who have failed to uphold their end of the deal need to go home too. Not working, not contributing, not integrating, not even speaking English, go home. From what I can see, the reform plan is nowhere near enough. Even on deporting illegals, it's just not enough. It's weak. They all must go, not some. All. Farage was also questioned why my plan would cost far more than his. His response? Because Zia is really good at maths. No, it's because your plan is weak. All very disappointing. We need to be brave to take our country back, and this is not brave. We've already shifted the entire public debate in 6 months, so let's keep pushing. Mass deportations, and I mean proper mass deportations, must happen. So Elon quotes this, and he says, unfortunately, the reality is that Farage will do almost nothing to protect Britain, That is obvious. Existing law is clear that anyone who was an accessory to aggravated rape or murder, especially of children, is guilty of a serious crime and must either serve time in prison if a citizen or be deported if not. The government simply needs to enforce the law. Tommy Robinson says the revolution is coming. Nothing can stop it. The silent majority will be silent no longer. Join us in our stand against tyranny on September 13th. And flags are a big theme today. This guy got 15 years in Iowa jail for burning a pride flag. And these 3 Washington teens are facing 10 years in jail after making skid marks on an LGBT Rainbow Road mural while riding e-scooters. Christopher says, I'm sorry, but as long as this is the status quo, I'm not going to work myself into a state of hysteria about Trump's executive order on burning the American flag. So Elon replies saying it's an extremely unequal standard. And here are the 3 kids who got charged with felonies for a few scooter marks on an LGBT mural. Elon replied saying, really? Retiring Roger responded with multiple reputable sources. I suppose that's the guy who rode the e-scooter who's now facing 10 years. Elon replies saying up to 10 years in jail just for these kids behaving rudely is insane. I take it back though, I don't think this is the kids actually in jail. The article says they're facing 10 years in jail. And someone replied to Elon saying that the charges were dropped. And a DC resident praises Trump for cleaning up DC. She says it's clean, it's all gone. People don't understand how big of a deal this is. Libs of TikTok says don't let the media and Democrats lie to you, and Elon reposted this. And Microsoft is funding a game called Take Us North about migrating as illegal immigrants into the USA. Grams asks, why is Microsoft encouraging breaking the law? The studio, Anima Interactive, is very, very woke, and Elon says, weird. And then the company behind Take Us North deactivated their Twitter after Asmongold dropped a reaction video to their game about migrants and asylum seekers. Zach says you could say they self-deported. And Elon says, is Microsoft really funding this company? Jay Viper says their website shows ID at Xbox as a funding source. That is Microsoft's Developer Acceleration Program, which provides funding. Elon says, This Brown Geek says this seems they were funded by 2 investors and Kickstarter. They are, however, part of the ID at Xbox program. Elon again says, Adam says Microsoft has created worse things. OneDrive, for example. And Elon has a laugh at that one. And there's also a story brewing in Germany. Deutschland Courier says this is an emergency message to the U.S. government and Vice President J.D. Vance from Joachim Paul, an AfD candidate excluded from a mayoral election. AfD candidate Joachim Paul was banned from running for mayor in Ludwigshafen.
Ludwigshafen.
The left woke government under Chancellor Merz wants to shut down free speech and ban the AfD. He is lying to President Trump. Germans who speak up go to prison. Vance was right. The threat is within our government. So Elon asks, excluded from election for no actual crime? And they replied saying, yes, Joachim Paul didn't even remotely commit a crime. He was barred from running for office, among other things, because he likes the Nibelungen saga. And the U.S. Embassy in Berlin says we strongly condemn the brutal attack on an American citizen in Dresden. While courageously intervening to protect a fellow passenger, he was viciously attacked. We urge German authorities to swiftly bring the perpetrators to justice and punish them to the fullest extent permitted by law. Safety is a collective responsibility. No one is safe until all are safe. And an illegal immigrant was arrested for assaulting a couple's home in Almeria and sexually assaulting the woman. Elon says it seems to be happening everywhere in Europe. And it happened again in Pakistan. And we saw the story yesterday about how this guy has committed several crimes but was still walking the streets and unfortunately murdered this girl yesterday in the United States. Elon asked, why wasn't he in jail? This was quoted and said Brown was arrested in January and was let out again by Judge Teresa Stokes with no bail. And Elon said, then that judge is responsible for the murder. And exactly 5 years ago, Kyle Rittenhouse fired 3 bullets at a Black Lives Matter mob. He hit a pedophile, a burglar, and a domestic abuser. Elon said, if you give evil people a cloak of false virtue, they will wear it immediately. And 0 arrests were made in Oakland after violent street takeovers by over 500 youths. And the Federal Communications Commission is continuing to expand their work to crack down on illegal robocalls. Today, we removed the certifications of more than 1,200 non-compliant voice service providers, effectively disconnecting them from the U.S. phone network. And Elon says, thank you. And any info on this guy yet? This was the guy who tried to assassinate Donald Trump and fired a bullet through his ear last year. Invest Answer says, nope, best cover-up ever. And Elon agrees. And Dan Scavino, Trump's longest-serving aide and loyalist, is taking over as White House Director of Personnel. Shows Trump plans to keep a close eye on hiring and firing. Elon says Dan is a good man. And Mike Lee says to read this thread to find out why Democrats are celebrating all over Utah tonight. Utah's electoral system is under attack by Democrats and their leftist allies in the Utah courts. 7 years ago, Utah voters passed a law through a ballot initiative creating a legislative redistricting commission. The Utah legislature later amended that law, which has the power to do under the Utah Constitution. And the Utah courts are now invalidating both the legislature's amendments and Utah's existing congressional district maps, even though nothing in the Utah Constitution compels that result. And in fact, Article 9 of the Utah Constitution requires legislative districts to be drawn by the legislature. So it now appears that Utah will be bound by congressional district maps drawn not by the legislature, but by the outside commission. Although the legislature still has final authority to approve such maps, under today's court order, the maps have to be drawn by the commission, even though the Utah Constitution gives that power to the legislature. This is a great day for Utah's Democrats, who haven't controlled the Utah legislature in many, many decades, because most Utah voters don't like what the Democratic Party is selling, and have found a clever way to even the score by enlisting the help of their judicial allies. But it's a terrible day for everyone else, and for the rule of law. Make no mistake, this decision will make the process of drawing legislative districts in Utah less accountable to voters, not more. It also results in maps that are far more generous to Democrats, and that's the whole point. Simply put, this is a judicial takeover of the political process, one designed by leftists to advance the electoral prospects of the Democratic Party. This is yet another example of how independent commissions are often used to give the left an unfair, unearned advantage in red states, one they could never otherwise secure. If you find this manipulation of the judicial system appalling, contact your state legislators today, tell them how you feel about the ruling, and encourage them to act quickly and aggressively to fix this problem, even by means of a constitutional amendment if necessary. And Elon reposted this whole thread. So that's it for politics today, and yesterday SpaceX was supposed to attempt their 10th flight test. Unfortunately, the launch was called off due to anvil clouds over the launch site, leading to a lightning risk. But at least we got Elon Musk talking to the camera for 20 minutes. He said you could go from LA to Sydney in less than half an hour, LA to Tokyo in less than half an hour, New York to Singapore in half an hour, across the Atlantic in 10 minutes. You're going 25 times the speed of sound, 30 times faster than a commercial aircraft. I assume he's talking about flying in Starship. And he says it's inevitable that Starship will have 42 engines. It's the prophecy foretold by the great prophet Douglas Adams in his book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And we got this photo yesterday of him standing under Starship, and Tesla owner Silicon Valley asked when 42 engines. Elon said Starship V4 will have 42 engines when 3 more Raptors are added to a significantly longer ship. That will fly in 2027. Starship V3 is a massive upgrade from the current V2 and should be through production and testing by end of year, with heavy flight activity next year. But for now, it's 33 engines, each more than twice the power of all 4 engines on a 747. And X Freeze asks, why is half of the ship black and half of it silver colored? And X Freeze asks, why is half of the ship black and half of it silver colored? That's because the bottom, as seen from orbital entry, has a heat shield on it. So the black there is the heat shield, and then the core structure of the rocket is a special alloy of stainless steel, and that's where you see the sort of shiny silver parts are stainless steel. The reason for steel over aluminum is that the heat of atmospheric entry and the heat of the rocket engines is enough to easily melt aluminum, but steel is much more resilient against both a sand heating, but especially the re-entry heating. And you don't have to paint it, which is actually very difficult to paint a large object that is going through cryogenic cycles and have the paint stay on. It's quite challenging, and Elon reposted this. And someone responded to this photo underneath of the Starship saying that is the ultimate up-the-skirt shot. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And SpaceX released a video of precise laser tracking in space at a distance of 4,000 kilometers while moving at 25 times the speed of sound. Now I assume that distance is talking about whatever the thing that the laser is tracking. Because the VP of Starlink engineering said that the mini lasers shown in today's video will connect third-party satellites and space stations into the Starlink constellation. The mini laser is designed to achieve link speeds of 25 gigabytes per second at distance up to 4,000 kilometers, and was recently tested in orbit on a satellite launched on Starlink G1020. Elon says lasers in space. And today Tesla has massively expanded its robotaxi service in Austin, Texas. You can see the previous geofence on the left and the new geofence on the right. And today they built the 100,000th new Model Y at Giga Berlin. And yesterday, in regards to self-driving technology, Elon said LiDAR and radar reduce safety due to sensor contention. If LiDARs, radars disagree with the cameras, which one wins? This sensor ambiguity causes increased, not decreased risk. That's why Waymos, which use all those sensors, can't drive on highways. We turned off the radars in Teslas to increase safety. Cameras for the win. So Holmar's catalog quotes this saying, "I'm not sure this makes sense. Granted, Elon is much smarter than me, but here's my 2 cents. I don't think sensor fusion is impossible. It just makes the system a lot more complicated. I can see an object, touch it, smell it, and my brain can fuse that all together naturally. I don't think sensor fusion is inherently less safe, but it increases the complexity of the system and increases the number of failure points. Tesla's main issue was that their in-car radar was so low resolution. Waymo can't drive on highways with customers yet, in part due to the range of the LiDAR sensors and tuning that for high-speed driving. But they're actually running on highways now with nobody in the driver's seat and letting employees play with that. So I don't think it's fair to say that they can't drive on highways. They just don't feel comfortable letting customers use it yet. My favorite argument for why deep learning beats a multi-sensor approach is that the large-scale data set you can build with a single low-cost sensor modality is extremely powerful for increasing the predictive accuracy of the model. You may have all these fancy sensors, but if it means your data set is a fraction of the size, diversity, etc., then a vision-only model might actually outperform in predictive accuracy and thus safety. I agree with him that vision-only is better, but don't think the crux of that is sensor fusion. So Rains quotes this and says, Elon always explains this without a concrete example, and that's why most people still don't really get the point and fail to understand why disagreement would reduce safety. Let me provide one simple real-world example. At night, LiDAR usually will have difficulty seeing a black tire on the road due to low reflectivity, but cameras with a higher dynamic range can, even clearer than a human would. Real-world tests in China have demonstrated that a system with sensor fusion would be less likely to avoid a tire on the road during the night at high speed. This is mostly because the system decided to believe LiDAR that there is no obstacle on the road. Also, recent safety tests performed by D-Car in China showed that FSD outperformed every other sensor fusion system in safety testing, further demonstrating the advantage of a system trained with input that has a higher signal-to-noise ratio. Elon responds to this saying, LiDAR also does not work well in snow, rain, or dust due to reflection scatter. That's why Waymo stopped working in any heavy precipitation. As I have said many times, there is a role for LiDAR in some circumstances, and I personally oversaw the development of LiDAR for the SpaceX Dragon docking with space station. I am well aware of its strengths and weaknesses. And Peter Diamandis says, did you know that on average, it takes 17 years for a medical breakthrough to reach your doctor's office? We're closing that gap with AI so discoveries can immediately transform care. Elon says AI in robotic medical care will be incredible. And there is an NBC News exclusive, a teenager dead by suicide and a family in anguish. They believe he'd still be alive if it wasn't for ChatGPT. And now they're suing the company and its CEO, Sam Altman. And of course, you guys know Elon is suing Apple for their partnership with ChatGPT and questionable monopolistic behavior. And this XAI employee says, here's what happens when asking ChatGPT if the integration with Apple iOS is monopolistic behavior. ChatGPT said the Department of Justice would very likely frame this as unlawful exclusive dealing, monopolization under U.S. antitrust law. The situation is closest to the Microsoft browser case and the Google search defaults case, both of which triggered major enforcement. And Elon reposted this. In 18 months after becoming the first human implanted with Elon Musk's brain chip, Noland Arbaugh was the first person to ever get the chip, says his whole life has changed. The wireless chip's 1,000 plus electrodes let him control a computer cursor, play Mario Kart, and manage everyday tasks solely with thought. He's now enrolled in neuroscience courses and launching a speaking business. He credits the device with restoring purpose and autonomy while paving the way for broader clinical trials spanning the US, Canada, UK, and UAE. Elon reposted this. And he also reposted that Super Grok is insanely powerful. You can use the file chat feature and talk to your code in real time. Prashant coded this 3D model of a helmet for a game asset using Three.js and WebGL with Grok 4. The file chat allowed me to add lighting and color controls just like that. It felt surreal. Try it now. And Chris Park works at X and says our X API will continue to be free for all emergency and weather utility apps. If you're sending weather notifications, saving lives, and serving humanity, please DM us. And Elon reposted this. And he also reposted to download Grok. And Werner Herzog opened an Instagram today. Jason Calacanis seems excited. Elon responds he should post here. Instagram is for the weak. And this man is unsure if he's becoming more virtuous with age or just too tired to sin. And Elon has a laugh at that one. And how did they design the SR-71 Blackbird without computer-aided design? Elon responds, yeah, incredible. And yesterday in Japan, a famous lawyer made a statement that anime and manga should conform to global standards, sparking a debate. Thank you so much for the so many comments in response, such as overseas fans don't want that either, and that's the path to destroying culture. This message reached Japanese creators and fans, and the voices grew louder, leading to it becoming a major trend on X in Japan. I feel that it probably wouldn't have gotten this big without the voices of people overseas. I also think that it has given Japanese people, who haven't given these issues much thought until now, an opportunity to realize the horrible effects of international standards. I will continue to work together with people around the world to protect content culture such as anime, manga, and games. Elon says shame on that lawyer. Who is paying him to push that? Grum says manga should stick to Japan's unique style and flavor. Everything is going bland in the world and products are weaker for it. Manga succeeded in the West because it was different and unavailable here. If manga tries to be Western, they will lose the market in both Japan and the USA, and Elon agrees. And here's Nano Banana versus Grok Imagine. Grok Imagine's on the right. Elon says Imagine turns out better in this case. That said, upcoming versions of Imagine will be radically better. So, that is everything that Elon said today. Tesla Robotaxi geofence got expanded in Austin. Starship with 42 engines will be flying in 2027. And Elon is putting his money where his mouth is to support cracking down on what's going on in the UK. Now, I have a feeling I'm going to split up this video into two separate videos just because he said so much about the UK, and I think it would be good to make that its own video. But we'll see what I decide to do. Regardless, if you guys want early access to these videos or you just want to support the channel, you can do so by joining the channel as a member, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.